Hello, everybody. In the video you are about to see, we are going to talk about deep work, especially as it pertains to spending a number of hours working hard consistently on something that's important to you. We're then going to have a conversation with ChatGPT and attempt to come up with a program that would allow us to focus better, combining elements that you're probably familiar with, including Pomodoro timers, white noise machines, mood trackers, and a pretty interesting idea that actually comes out of ChatGPT. So stick around. If you've ever met me in real life, you'll know that I'm a pretty big Cal Newport fan, especially when it comes to his books, So Good That They Can't Ignore You and Deep Work. I read both of these books right around the same time, and they had a profound impact on the way that I handle my both career but also life philosophy. These books are more of a philosophy than a recipe for how to work. If you're not familiar with Cal Newport, he's a professor at Georgetown in computer science and also has a podcast and writes a lot of books, and is definitely an inspiration of mine in terms of working style and career choice too, right? Because he's computer science tangential or involved because he's a professor of computer science. So this quote comes from one of his blog posts from early or late aughts, the 2007, 2008ish. And he was writing at the time about kind of this notion of looking back at the careers of these lauded people who have spent years honing their career skill and turning it into something that other people admire and are inspired by, and basically makes the point that really at the end of the day it comes down to persistence and working on the right thing. And if you have those two things working for you, you'll be able to create the best product that you can, instead of the fallacy of kind of when people just see new, or when they see people that they look up to, they're like, oh my god, how did you have the time to finish this whole body of work? It's like, well, I just worked on one or two projects at a time and I just kept working. So the quote from the book or the blog that I'm looking at basically is talking about this kind of like creative work era of like 2000s, the early 2000s, with like this resistance from Stephen Pressfield's art of war of art, or this naysayer, which is basically this idea that, aspiring creators fail, not because of this internal foe, but because they just don't do the 5 hours of deep work every day. And 5 hours of deep work every day is non-trivial. It's actually quite difficult because it involves you to sit around in one place, and think very deeply. It's kind of like a mental marathon. But we're going to be talking a little bit about using ChatGPT, or we're going to be having a conversation with ChatGPT about building a career portfolio. And then we're also going to pseudocode an app that can help us fight the resistance and get us to focus, with Pomodoro and time blocking. And this is a picture of deep work. So let's say that we want to start by saying, come up with app ideas that can help facilitate working in solitude and entering the flow state. We would want it obviously to run offline. Really, we wouldn't even really want it to be near a computer, most realistically, right? Because you need very low stimuli. So low stimulus, provoking, and can run offline. So I don't really want it to give me app ideas that are kind of like web experiences where it's like, get you and your three friends and see which one of you is the most able to deep work. Like the whole point is to be able to like lock yourself away and do the thing that you need to do. Okay, so we got a focus time, we got a white noise generator, mindful breathing, and an offline note-taking app, Pomodoro timer, minimalist writing app, meditation app, digital detox tracker. So yeah, these are kind of what I expected. We got the meditations, we got the minimalist writing, we got the Pomodoro timer, which is actually something that I put up here in this comment block, which this doesn't get sent to GPT, by the way. If you see this begin ChatGPT MD comment, that doesn't go to the chat GPT MD. An offline note-taking app, a breathing app, white noise generator, and a focus timer. So, I mean, of these, the white noise generator kind of sticks out to me in the Pomodoro, but I kind of want it to be a bit more creative. So combine these into a more creative app idea that I don't want to say, like, I guess like no one has ever seen before, but that is counterintuitively helpful. Okay. So it kind of basically combined all of them into one called the Deep Work Oasis. Uh, and then it says that, you know, it's basically an offline working app with a minimalist interface and soothing ambient sounds, a Pomodoro timer, and an offline note-taking app within the Deep Work Oasis, mindful breathing exercises, meditation, yada, 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 yada. This is fine. This isn't what I wanted. So what I usually do is that sometimes I'll, like, instead of, you know, I can just delete it very easily, which is a great part about the ChatGPT MD app, and pretend that never happened. But what I can do is I can seed it. So I can kind of give it some ideas. Maybe we don't even need to do this. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this too. So let's basically go back to the start and say that we want a low stimulus, and then here are some ideas to get you going. You see, this is the interesting part about ChatGPT. Since I got rid of all those ideas, I don't actually have any ideas of my own. I'm acting here like I'm on my high horse, but I don't have any fucking ideas of my own. Okay, so some ideas to get you going. Let's talk about, where do people really get into the flow state? So the flow state is about being adequately challenged. I do not know how to spell adequately. Oh, I did it. Challenged without being defeated. Deep work should be 2 or so hours. Distractions should be minimized. What else do I want to say? Should take care of, I guess, like everything around the deep work, so a person can focus every bureaucratic detail, so person can focus on deep work. Okay, so still coming up with a focus timer, distraction blocker, task manager, white noise generator, Pomodoro, offline note taking, personal assistant. As a personal assistant, that one's kind of interesting. Let's up the temperature and do it one more time. You know, again, a big part of this channel is just playing around, seeing what we can come up with. It's kind of like improv. It's the yes and between ChatGPT and me. Okay, so this one's got the admin assistant, a noise canceling app, mood tracker, idea generator. Any of these call out. So focus timer, I mean, obviously it's stuck on this Pomodoro focus timer, which is makes sense. It's an easy one. It's always kind of correct, right? Because people do need to focus using a time block to do deep work, right? Noise canceling, it's just the white noise machine, but different word. Admin assistant that takes care of scheduling meetings, sending invoices. Yeah, I think that this would be great. This would be really appreciated. A mood tracker. Yeah, so let's combine the mood tracker idea with the focus timer. So let's just get rid of the ones that we don't want. Okay, let's change this to a 3 so it fits in. Okay, so combine the 3 of these into one app. I will say sometimes it comes up with just dumb names. Like Flow Focus is a dumb name. Okay, so this app is designed for deep work. Upon opening, they set a work session for up to 2 hours and can choose from white noise or nature sounds. During the deep work sessions, notifications are silenced automatically. The user can check their mood. Okay. When it's time for a break, the app will send reminders. That okay. I would say that it didn't do the mood tracking, did it? Uh, I guess it could be interesting, like actually to have this notification pop up on their phone every like 15 minutes or so and be like, how are you feeling right now? You know what I mean? And then you kind of collect all that data. That could actually be pretty helpful, I think. So let's say, okay, so generate the above as an Electron app. Only write method stubs and JS docs. If you've been to this channel before and seen my videos, you'll know that, again, I only write method stubs and JavaScript docs because it saves a bunch of tokens and is helpful for reading. So now it's saying, okay, here's the start flow focus method, start deep work session method, pause deep work session method, resume deep work session, end deep work session, which is, I think, the same, right? Okay, so let's say that add a method stub for the mood at maybe method stubs for the mood tracking workflow. Okay. So now this is the calculating statistics, which is, I think, the thing that people will be most interested in. So basically, it's the average score, minimum score, max score. This is going to return all of these as like a double dictionary, which is cool. The array of moods, and says what it does. So stop tracking the mood from the session. You would probably call this in the mood tracking session. And the end deep work session, resume deep work session, pauses one that's currently active without ending it and starting it, which is the start flow focus is interesting because I think that is that just kind of, okay, yeah. So what Electron elements will I be using? What Electron JS elements will I be using? List format. Okay. So these are just the things that Electron JS would be using. So we would be using IPC main and IPC renderer, which have communication between the backend and the front end processes. Menu for the custom menu to like start and stop. Tray because it's going to be like a notification app, right? And notification because it's going to be a notification app, so it's going to send notifications to your users from within the app. Dialogue, which is like modal, I guess, in Electron. I'm not exactly sure. And global shortcut, which allows for, keyboard shortcuts. I was always wondering how Obsidian does this because I know that it has a bunch of hotkeys. Obviously, I just pressed one to do ChatGPT MD. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it, right? Like we basically started out and we were thinking like, okay, how can we come up with some pseudocode, talking a little bit about like kind of saying that we want to work consistently every day on a project. I think I'm most slightly disappointed in the lack of kind of like creative outgoingness of the ideas. Like a lot of the ideas that we got were really straightforward, like the focus timer, white noise app. Mood tracker was a little bit out there, right? But you remember the ones that I deleted, they just, to me at least, weren't that they were pretty obvious, but they were only obvious weirdly enough after reading, right? Like because when I deleted them, I couldn't think of anything, so maybe they weren't obvious. But then when we combined them, we got Flow Focus, right, which is the app that is designed to help users stay in deep work. And then it has this regular interval, which I actually do think this is cool. If anyone actually does build this, to have a Pomodoro app that every 5 minutes, instead of sending you a text message, will basically say, how are you feeling right now? Like, how are you feeling into this deep work session? And it would probably show up on your screen where you just press 1 to 10 really quickly without getting too distracted. So weirdly enough, that does distract you from the deep work to do that. But I think that that's actually helpful information. It's not like a text message, and you can be really honest and you'd be really quickly, or you finish it really quickly. So yeah. And then we have the pseudocode stubs for all of these. Again, if you've been on this channel before, I recommend that if you do copy and paste this code from my website, bramadams.dev, linked in the description, that you can just give this to Copilot, and Copilot will just write this code for you, which is great. And then we got to learn about some elements in Electron, which is nice because I don't know much about Electron, but a lot of the apps that use every day are Electron, Obsidian, as well as Visual Studio Code.